Hi friends, today I'd like to talk about my latest track, which is a remix of Julian Gray's and SOFI's Revolver. Easily my favorite track of 2022. Super glad I was able to actually find the time to finally jump on that remix, because I really wanted to remix it like last summer, but didn't really have the time, and I was finally able to sit down with it like last December. And I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. The original is great, love it to bits. And considering the original track is like a 2011, 2012 electro house throwback, I wanted to bring that track more into, I would say, tech house territory, a tech house zone, and add some acid to it as well. So yeah, I'm gonna show you how I produced it, how I mixed it, how I mastered it even, and yeah, I hope it's gonna be interesting and useful for you. So yeah, let's start from top to bottom. The first thing I made with this track was this bass groove. And actually, the first things I made with this track were like the drum pattern and the bass loop. The drum pattern is super simple. Whenever I want to, just jam around with something techy, tech housey, techno-ish, I just pull out a TR-909 kit, which basically is a sample TR-909 inside Ableton. If you guys didn't know, I really like how Ableton has many sample drum machines. I think it's insanely useful. So yeah, this was the first thing I made with this track, and I felt like this groove was all right, and I thought that I could work with it, and it went from there. Let me show you the bass groove first. It's just one note, E repeatedly, but I think it has some pitch automation to give it more movement. That was also like a thing I noticed in Dr. Dre's productions. I know it's a bit weird, we're talking about electronic music here, but I'm bringing up Dr. Dre. So a story, last year I was listening to my Guilty Pleasure album. It's Relapse by Eminem, and I was trying to reverse engineer Dr. Dre's mindset, so what's creating those instrumentals, because he was the producer of the album. And what I really noticed that he has lots of short loops, short phrases, which are like 1, 2 bars long. But the tracks don't feel boring and repetitive, because every time the phrase resolves, the first beat of the first bar of the phrase really kicks, in a way. There's a lot of emphasis on the beginning of the phrase every time. You'd say like, Max, that's how it is with every track, but seriously, listen to instrumentals of tracks like 3 a.m., Must Be the Ganja, stuff like this from the Relapse album. So what I really wanted to make here and to achieve here, to achieve the same result, basically, while emphasizing the very first note. So it's like and yeah, I felt like that adds much more character to a phrase like this, because basically it repeats throughout the entire track, obviously with some automations, etc., etc. But you got to keep it interesting. And I felt like this is the easiest way to keep stuff interesting without actually changing the notes, to really emphasize the first note of the phrase. The sound itself, I feel like it's a preset I found in Analog Lab. I really like Juno 60 and the Juno 60 emulation. It's probably my favorite synth ever, even though I never even saw the original hardware, but I really like the emulations. I think the DCO 106, which is like the Cherry Audio emulation of Juno, was my very first synthesizer I actually ever bought. I mean, the VST synth. And it's very good for wide basses, because it has a chorus module, the chorus effect. And yeah, I use it here. It's a slightly tweaked preset. I also dialed up some distortion. Yeah, I think you can do it with the pedal effects here. And how I processed it later. Also used isotope trash to give it some more warmth. Barely noticeable, but it drives the signal a bit. Trash is my favorite distortion. Mono the bass, so the lows are actually mono. And the mids of the sound are like somewhat stereo, to keep it mono compatible. Slight EQ, just wanted to, cut this sound over there at 182, which is like, the very beginning of low mids in a way. even though people tend to set it low mids like 200 to 600, 800, whatever. I feel like this can also muddy up the signal slightly, so I decided to cut it. Filter I use for automation. Most of the track it's like on the low. I cut most of the stuff. Then the limiter. That's just something I shouldn't really be doing as much as I do nowadays. But I've been using limiters a lot just to squeeze out the dynamics of sounds like basses and many sounds as well. Inside the project, I'll show you a couple of times. But, you really should be using a compressor for this. But I've been really careless with using limiters like that, even though it somewhat works. But, just saying, don't follow that blindly. Don't follow that one. And also, obviously, some sidechain compression on the kick drum. Speaking of the drums, the kick drum is a slightly tweaked 909 kick, only EQ'd. I think I heard this tip from Sadovic Production on YouTube, if you guys may have heard of him. I owe him everything I know, basically. It's a super useful channel. He's a great guy. And shout out to him. But he taught me that you really have to EQ that one frequency on the kick drum, which is usually like around 120, 130, 110, 150-ish, and it's very boomy, it's very muddy, and it's really muddying up the kick. And by removing it, you make it sit in the mix better. And that was the one I found. Again, without the kick, it punches a bit too much for this track. But now it sits in nice and it sits in nice. Also didn't like this for some reason, even though we are moving closer towards the click territory of the kick, but felt like removing it as well. What else? The whole drum bass processing, I guess, is really simple. Usually I use isotope neutron for that, because basically it's some EQs and some compression, then sculptor, then exciter if you want to add some multi-band saturation. But this time around, just using a drum bass somehow worked. Basically, it's just a lot of saturation, and it's also compressed because drum bass has a very harsh compressor algorithm here, and if I keep it on 100%, it punches a bit way too much for this track. And yeah, it's way too compressed, it gets way too loud, the perceived loudness, I mean. So I just had to dial down the dry wet signal, so it's the mix nicely. Yeah, what else? The clap I found, I think, in the sample pack, slightly tweaked, transposed one semitone, EQ'd slightly, and also have some automated delay. I think I automated around here. Now, where had I automated even? Let me see. Whoop. Oh, okay, alright, I automated here. Before the breakdown. Whatever. And I think the hi-hat is an open 909 hi-hat. Yeah. With some reverb, also automated. Sometimes I want it dry. When the phrase ends, I want it wet. Stuff like this. That's basically the drums. And this is just a sample loop I found. 16 hi-hats. I gave it some sidechain compression, even though obviously there is nothing there that could compete with the kick, but I really loved the movement, and that the sidechain compression added. And I felt like it benefited the whole, universal rhythm of the track, being the kick drum. Instead of the. But that's, just my take on it. The main part of the track, and the main thing I brought to the track is an acid line. Basically, the acid line is... let me show you the notes. I think it's E second octave and E sharp second octave. Yeah. And also slightly pitched automated to give it some more movement. Ran through an arpeggiator on 16s. Transposing the whole thing one octave up every step. The sound itself was made with analog. I really like using analog for acid sounds. It's basically a sawtooth, pitched 1 octave down, and with a filter envelope like that. And obviously you have to crank up the resonance, for the acid sounds to really shine. That's about it here. And I had to make 3 separate tracks because for some reason you can't automate filter envelope in analog in Ableton. So yeah. What else I use on here? I use Isotope Trash to automate it every now and then. I think I automate it here. Let's check it out. Yeah, I automate on transitions. It was like some preset. Hold up, let me show you. Yeah. Yep. I EQ it slightly, mostly the low mids. Let's listen to it without the EQ. Yeah. I compress it a bit, like 1, 2, 3 dB of gain reduction. Sometimes 5 on the peaks, but it's very subtle. And I also use this, my favorite chorus, it's the Juno chorus. You see, I really love the Juno scenes. I use the Juno chorus every now and then to automate it and to give it more stereo beats, like here. Yep. And obviously some sidechain compression. Once again, there is nothing even there to compete with the kick drum in terms of the frequencies. But it gives it this universal rhythm of the track, being the 4-on-the-floor kick drum. Dun, 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 dun. And this is what I felt for this project. This one is slightly more closed. And this one is the most open of them all. It's probably going to be better if you listen to it in context. Speaking of this reverse clap, I think it's great for like sliding into the next phrase. And also, what I really found interesting, that like if you have the main clap of your main drum pattern dry, and you have stuff like a reverse clap every now and then very wet and reverb, I feel like it's a nice contrast, and basically it tells the listener like, oops, something is coming. Let's listen to this. I really like reversed claps. It's a reversed 707 clap. Slightly EQ'd, just to remove the lows. There was something that I didn't like in the lows. Yeah, I don't want inaudible stuff to build up on the track. And yeah, it's pretty wet and reverb. So there is that. The lead from the original track, the sample, the stem, I kept as is. Didn't even add anything. But what I did, I removed the attack basically with this fade in. So it's like, so it's instead of ta-da-dun, so it like slides into this lead without it being like, so it's like, if that makes any sense. I felt like it works better for the track. And I also kept this counter melody, also unchanged, because the sounds I saw iconic to the original track, that I wanted them to be present in the remix as well. I really like those. Those are very nice and dreamy. Sounds like this always fascinate me. Even though they're, again, just so simple. Sawtooth wave and square wave. This is like a resampled noise riser I found in a sample pack. But it's tweaked and rearranged a whole lot. I edited some stereo movement using utility pen, basically. Because, effects like this are also very, very notable in dance music of late 2000s and early 2010s. I wanted to play into this vibe a tiny bit. Also, for instance, we're listening to an unmastered version of this track. I turned everything off on the master channel, and I ended up mastering this track in a separate project later on. So this is unmastered, just so you know. While we are here, the vocal chops, I added them some stereo with ozone imager and rearranged them slightly over there, so it's like, you know, emphasizes the last bar before the drop. Also, I love the 909 drums, like I told you before, and a small tiny build-up drum loop. Let's find the original. Actually, I want to know where the original is from. Sample packs. 909 kit. Yeah, it's from there. The original sounded like 19, right? Okay. Can't be that one. Cymbal loops, maybe this one. No, snares. Where is this one? Probably this one, actually. Yeah, so I just took the 909 kick drum from there. I could have actually just done it with, you know, with a stock 909 snare. Did I say kick? I meant the snare. And I rearranged them, and I obviously gave them some delay. You can see it's a freeze and flatten kind of thing here. I also do this over there, but, you know, shortened. Speaking of, you see the red parts. I really like how the small tiny parts of the tracks that are like, you know, basically risers and breakers, if they talk to each other, I feel like it's nice. Like here. Bam. Like. So you see, I pen this to the left, I pen this to the right, and this one is in the middle. So it's like a call and response kind of thing, but in 3 parts. You can hear this, a lot of this kind of stuff in my track Full Bloom from my very first EP. Yeah, it's all processed slightly, like I give this some saturation and drive and some delay as well. Because I wanted the sounds to blend in with the vocal very nicely. Like, oh, you got me so confused. Same for the riser. I basically use those from the original track, but they, you know, like chopped up. I use them to fill the space between the vocal lines. Speaking of the vocal, I didn't do much with it. I freezed and flattened it a few times, but that's because I was using waves sibilance to remove some sibilance from it. Yeah, there it is. Basically, I felt like the vocal stem had too much harsh s and sh, and it was benefiting the original track, but wasn't really working with mine. So, you know, that's why I decided to remove it with sibilance, and I freezed it and flattened it, and there we go. I also sent it on reverb slightly. This reverb, it's just a stock Ableton reverb, slightly tweaked with a sidechain going. Again, I keep the sidechain just to, you know, emphasize the universal rhythm of the track. I also EQ it slightly to remove the highs, so the highs of the original vocal actually, you know, like cut through. I think I also remove like a harsh frequency from the vocal with Pro Q. This one, let's listen to it. Yeah, I warned you. It's harsh. I use it in dynamic mode. I love Pro Q for dynamic processing. I also shave off some dBs of gain reduction with a limiter because it's quite dynamic and I wanted it to be more squeezed here for this track. Even though, again, I should be using a compressor for this. The better way would probably be using a Pro C with a, you know, what was the vocal preset? Upfront preset, which is basically Waves, Renaissance, Vox algorithm. Would be the same thing. But not as harsh as using a limiter. But limiter worked, I decided to keep it, why not? As long as it sounds alright. I also made, like, you know, this reverb slide in, which is like, you know how you do it. You just take a reverb, you just take a sound, you reverse it, you put reverb on it, you flatten it, then you reverse it again, kind of deal. That's how it sounds.
Can't you see her beating?
Yeah, and I also made some tracks for the hey, hey, hey with delay, because you know the hey, hey is basically the whole hook of the track in a way, apart from the hook itself. And I also got those she's gotcha, you know, she's gotcha spinning round and round over there. Even though it's a bit cheesy, I like stuff like this. She's gotcha. And then the second one actually goes into the verse. You get the idea. When it comes to the plug, first things first, the original plug from the original track. I used it for the intro, like here, with lots of auto filter automation. I love automating the LFO on the on the filters frequency. I think that's really nice movement to it. And then I turn it off. Yep. And you see, I even turned the sidechain off, because the first half of this build-up was sidechained. It was ducking whenever the kick hit, but the second one is basically very open. I wanted this contrast to, go through. Let's unsolo it. I really like this vocal, bar before the drop. Da, 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 da. I love stuff like this. Nice. What else? What else? I also used the pad from the original. In first, I wanted to somehow incorporate the original chords and the original chord progressions into the track, but I ended up thinking that, having some melody, having some chord progressions in this kind of track would really not benefit it. So I just decided to, cut out one single note from the pad and keep it as is. I wanted this track to have, very little to none chord progressions and melodic variations. So just one note. Yep. I also use it here, I think. But this is actually the unchanged pad from the track, just to give it a slight build up. Hey, hey, hey. Nice. What else? I think that's pretty much it, really. Also, again, I used lots of these small, tiny 909 snare build-ups that I told you about earlier. And the ending. Okay, more about this pad, plug, whatever. I basically just give it lots of auto filter automation, with the LFO. I really like how it, basically makes it. It just makes it sound a bit more robotic and mechanical in a way, because in the original it sounded quite organic, if you can even say it about the synthesized sound, but I wanted it to be very robotic and very artificial, so. You see the difference between this and... Yeah, it makes it more robotic, I feel like. And I also automate the reverb, so towards the end of the track it's super, soaked in reverb over there. And I also use the same sample from the beginning, the plug build-up. But I cut it out a different way, and I also automate it in a different way for the ending of the track and the outro. I feel like with this echo, again, it's weird because with this kind of plug, I wanted to sound robotic. But with this kind of plug over there towards the end, I added this echo and it started sounding organic in a way. Like, like a piano or staccato or whatever. It's weird how, with the same kind of sound, you can achieve a different kind of feel just using a different effect. And I feel like that's what's really great about electronic music. It's like, you can do so much different stuff with slightly different tools with the same sounds. And that was basically the whole point of the remix. It's like, the same idea, the same track, but just in a slightly different world in a way. Now it feels like a piano even. Obviously a very bad electronic piano, but still. Without the echo. Yeah, that's the entire track, and towards the end I really felt like giving this small tiny touch. Yep. I really like this sound, and it feels very hopeless and sad and very nicely reverb soaked. Sounds very urban for some reason. It's just me being weird. But whenever I hear a sound like this, it kind of reminds me of a very sad, a very gray concrete city. And I love this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the whole track. I use the markers obviously, and I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys got some insight into my process. And I hope it was useful. Again, super stoked to have remixed this track. Easily my favorite dance track of 2022. And I'm super glad I did this because once again, the original is just insane. I have it on repeat way more often than you can think of. Again, thanks for watching. The track is in the description. Go check it out. It's free to listen to on SoundCloud. And you can even download it for free on my Bandcamp. You can also check out lots of other neat stuff I have there. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on YouTube or on my Telegram, wherever. Thanks again for watching. Catch you guys later.